Best.Podcast.Ever is sponsored by the Gertzberg Law Firm, a full-service business law firm in Cleveland and Chagrin Falls that's changing the way businesses retain their attorneys. Go to gertzberglaw.com to learn more. While you're there, check out Cover My Six, a complete legal audit of the 6 areas that most often create or prevent business lawsuits and government investigations. Go to covermysix.com to learn how we keep you safe. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to listen to the best podcast ever recorded.
I mean, if you're not wrong, then you're probably not challenging yourself enough. Those who challenge themselves are wrong consistently, and that's how we build our experience level.
Hi, Molly Gebler.
Hi, Alex Gertzberg.
What are you doing? What's going on?
Just hanging out with you at the podcast.
You are hanging out with me at the podcast.
Yes. Okay, let's just get right into it.
Let's jump right into it.
The cover of Neighbors magazine. Yes.
That's some stuff.
That's
right there.
Christy George's magazine.
Yeah.
Alex Gertzberg and family was on the cover of the magazine, which I'm sure we will have a picture of it to show everybody. How great's that?
It was good, man. They came over the house and they took all these great pictures and did. They're very professional operation.
Very professional.
They did a good job. It was fun.
Oh, how fun!
And I don't know. Can you get that online?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think.
I think what you want to do, folks, is there is probably on there. We will put in the show notes how you can get a copy of it. But the gist of it, Molly, thank you, by the way, for you and John sending such nice texts about it over the weekend, is that I'm on the cover.
Yes,
and. Following in the famous footsteps of one Molly Gebler who was on the cover like a year ago. And they tell my story from young immigrant boy to whatever I am today. And yeah, it's fun. It's lovely.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then shout out to her also. They were kind enough to do a little article about the book, about Blossom.
Yeah. Did they?
That's a couple pages.
Oh, is it? I only read my own article. I got to read it. Speaking
There's
of
other things going on.
You came in here and
did.
gave me my own personalized copy of Blossom by Molly Gebler, illustrated by Lily Winans. Do you think she's related to Cece Winans?
We'll have to ask her. We'll have to ask her.
Isn't there like a Winans sister? There's a gospel choir or something.
Okay.
Anyway. Yeah, it's like Dee Dee and Cece Winans or something.
Something
that,
sounding,
right?
Something sounding familiar to me.
Let if you're listening, call
Let
in.
Let us know. So Lily's is now a published illustrator at the age of 15. I mean, how cool is that?
This is, I have to tell you,
that?
and by the way, if somebody wants to get a copy of this book, they need to go to apieceofmollysmind.com.
Yes, thank you.
Really? Oh, look, you got your picture on the back.
Yes,
I didn't see the back of
it. Legit.
Yeah, this is a really cool book. I can't wait to read it to Maya later.
Maya is going to get her own copy.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But here, this is like. This picture on page 25 and 26.
They're very sad.
These kids are just forlorn.
They're
so
very
upset
sad.
That Blossom has to. Spoiler alert.
She's got to go home. But my favorite one is, I think, in the middle is the. Keep going. I mean, every page is amazing.
I like the cloud naming game a lot.
What's so great is that that was all in my head. Nope. Keep going. One more.
That's going to be the
right there.
Oh, this one
right there,
the one right before.
So what's great about that is all the future characters of my upcoming books are all on that page.
Interesting. A little sneak peek, a little teaser.
Interesting. So all the characters will be in all the books.
So what's next, Molly? I mean, we went from documentarian to published author. This on top of just being a raconteur. That's someone who, you know what a raconteur is?
Is it the mob racketeering?
No, I think a raconteur is someone who just likes to mix stuff up.
Gotcha.
You know?
Yeah.
Just
I
likes
like
to
to
mix it up.
Yes, I do
Keep
like to
things-
mix it up.
Keep things interesting.
I don't know. This is the year of the book, and we'll see what next year's plan is.
I remember when...
Yeah? I think
When
I
you-
announced it here a couple
you
years
did.
ago. Yeah?
Yeah, and I think I said, I'm going to work on one too. And
You
I'm,
did.
I'm nowhere near finishing
You
mine.
did. Well, I mean, let's be honest. This is a 30-page children's book.
It's lovely.
Thank
you did a
you.
great
Thank
job.
you.
Ariel.
Lily did a great
Get the
job, and-
airplane mode going.
Shout out to the Scrim Valley Times. They did a great article in the paper on Thursday about
Did they?
it. Yeah, so
It's
getting
lovely.
great. We've hit 100 in less than a week
Wow.
sold, and
Nice job, Molly Gabler.
yeah, so fun. So
What-
so how was your weekend? How did you spend Mother's Day with your mama?
I did.
Oh,
I did. We went to Paladar. It was packed.
oh,
It was insane.
yeah. You know, I don't know what's going on in the restaurant world, but I'll tell you what. We celebrated Emily's graduation. Shout out to Emily Gabler.
Nice job, Emily, graduating from Kent State
Yes,
University.
fashion. She is now able to be hired, folks, in the fashion world. Grab her up. So we went to her graduation on Saturday, and Friday we said, well, we want to go out to dinner, but we wanted to get out of Kent just because we knew everybody would be there. So
Right.
I called literally everyone in the Scrin Valley. Could not get a reservation for 10 of us anywhere. Ended up going to Nighttown, which was phenomenal.
Nice.
And you'll notice my burn marks.
Yeah, there are all kinds of sunburn.
Yeah, all kinds of
I
sunburn.
don't usually see that.
You do on my body. With this is an Irish skin right here, and with my entire Irish family, we did a family texting thread where everyone literally was sending each other pictures of what they looked like the next day, and there was a lot
Is
of
that right?
this kind of red and white line on knees and arms and obviously my head.
I can't ever I've known you for years now, a few years, and I can't ever remember seeing you this burnt.
Burn, peel, and repeat. That is that is what I do. That is the Irish way.
Do you get like a base
No.
going so that by the end of the summer you're money or
No,
nothing like that?
I'm this white or this red.
Gosh, it
There's
seems like it would be
no-
uncomfortable.
It's very like today in the shower with my scalp.
Ew.
It was very.
Why don't you just put a bunch of sunblock
Well,
on?
here's the deal.
You didn't know.
Totally my fault. But when I looked at the weather, it said it was going to be, I think 60, maybe. I know. I just did it. You know, it's May. I wasn't in that
Yeah.
thing. But I will tell you, we looked up in the sky and there was an amazing rainbow. No rain. It's called a fire something. It's a very rare
Really?
rainbow. I think it was my mother, but that's just me. But it was
buy that.
pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Mark Johnson said it's a very rarity because he was posting about it.
I actually that reminds me of something I was going to talk to you about. Because I know you like the Netflix. There is have you watched?
Is there a "the" in front of it?
I
Is it the Netflix? You sound
Yeah.
like you were 80 there.
Like when you gotta check
the internet,
check the Google,
the Facebook.
see what the web says.
Yeah.
The Netflix though, it's got this show on it called One Strange Rock. Have you seen it with Will Smith?
No.
It is it's
See the voice of it?
sort of. There's some, you see him talking, but a lot of it is a voiceover too. But in general, what it is it's discussions with astronauts about their observations about the Earth from when they were up in space. But I learned when you said this rainbow phenomenon, there's a lot of things you learn about the planet from watching this series that you never knew about and that you would think you would know about. Like just there's parts of the Earth. In Africa, there's this one part of Africa where you cannot walk anywhere because there is nothing but acid gas that just will kill you instantly if you breathe it in. Like
Now, why do Why do we have to have someone from space telling us that? Why don't the people in Africa able to tell us that?
That's a great question, Molly. I'm not sure I'm prepared to answer that, but it's fascinating.
Hey, don't walk there.
I think what it is the astronauts are there to to kind of like set the discussion going and start an observation.
Okay.
Right? That they don't really fully get while they're here on the ground, that they only really fully appreciated. What's up there, Yawny Yawners?
I'm trying to. Jeez. I only have one ear open right now.
Really?
I'm trying to crack the other one open.
Did that just happen?
It happened earlier today. I've been under the weather.
Yeesh.
A little bit. Yeah.
Anyway, you should watch that show. You'd like it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then what's funny is Tiffany and I make fun of it because when the astronauts are talking, they say it like they talk like astronauts and they're very like technical and specific, but a little conversational. And then Will Smith is the guy that's supposed to come in and get he speaks very urban, right? He's like, so let me get this straight. What y'all saying is like that. Okay. And clearly he's supposed to be the voice of the common man, but he overdoes it.
Oh.
And it's so ridiculous the way he does it. But it is very educational and fascinating. Huh. And that when you just mentioned this rainbow phenomenon, it made me think there's a lot of things like that we have recently been learning on One Strange Rock.
Well, I'll watch that after I binge Sopranos, which is also very educational.
Did you used to watch that when it was live?
You know what? I did. But, you had to catch it each week, right. And we couldn't rewind it or anything like that. Yeah. So I think you saw bits and pieces of it unless you were religiously watching it every week. So I'm watching it in its entirety. So I'm sure I missed episodes or maybe even seasons or I don't know.
Yeah.
I love that world.
You do?
I do.
I like the I like the actor a lot.
Yeah, it's sad he's not with us anymore.
Yeah, no.
And shout out to Doris Day. She passed away today, 97.
Was that today?
Yeah, maybe yesterday. I don't know. One of my mom's favorites. 97.
Double D.
Mm-hmm. And welcome to the Prince. Prince. Oh crap.
The
royal prince. Welcome to him. So my grandbaby Mary's got a shot now.
She could do better. What did you do all weekend besides go to our graduation?
Well,
I didn't even tell you what I did all weekend.
No.
But no, you go first.
No, nothing. I was sick Friday, and then Saturday, literally, that was an all-day affair. And then Sunday, we just all went over to my house and vegged and ate and, celebrated Mother's Day.
Lovely.
And you?
Is Mother's Day sad at your house?
There are moments.
Yeah.
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 But it was a good one because it was Sam's first one.
Right. Sure.
So that was exciting.
Sure was. Now, are the babies good? Because it seemed like there was another
babies are good
situation last Monday.
Yes. It's just
why can't they just choose a different day of the week?
Right. And I almost called you today. But I knew you'd kill me, so I'm just gonna cough away from the mic.
That's cool. Yeah. Look, Molly, I get it. If you gotta take another Monday off, that's fine.
It's all good. It was just the coughing I was nervous about, but I got my water here.
Who did we interview last Monday? It was
Stephanie Puzo.
That was a really good one. No, that was a really good one.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
You would have loved it.
We love Stephanie.
You know what we did? We just went right into the lightning round immediately, and it lasted in like a good hour and a half.
Oh, I love
fantastic.
that.
Yeah,
I love that.
So I was in Chicago, and then I came back on Friday from Chicago.
If I want I'm going Friday. Never been. If I want a good, of course. If I want a good deep dish, where do I go?
We're asking the wrong cat. Wrigley Field. Are you going to be in Wrigleyville? They're big on that.
No, I'm going to West Side Story Lyrical Theater.
To see West Side Story?
Uh-huh.
Are you going to Chicago just for that?
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yeah. Well, my friend's son is the lead in it.
All right.
Corey Cott.
Oh yeah, I've heard you talk about him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Chicago's all right. It's a good town.
Everybody says I'm gonna
good
love
town.
it.
It's a great town.
Expensive.
Well, you know what? Chicago is an amazing town to go to when it's nice out, because what they've done with Millennial Park and with the waterfront is what we should have done with our waterfront 20 years ago, instead of giving it to Burke Lakefront and wasting all that good land. Hopefully the weather will be nice and you can take a nice stroll through Millennium Park and then through Michigan Avenue and look at all the bridges and all the amazing architecture there. And it is one of my favorite cities, actually. But when it's crappy out, you might as well stay in Cleveland, because it's the exact same experience.
Oh.
Like, they've got great restaurants. Cleveland's got great restaurants.
Right.
They've got great theaters. I think Chicago, one of the greatest things about it is that there's so much fun walking around stuff to do.
Right.
Like
Right.
New York. Anywho.
Well, we went to D.C. I don't know if I talked about this, to see the other
You
Cott
did
brother,
talk about it.
and how I bought the ticket for the wrong day.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to check my ticket before I go
Right
for
on.
this one. I don't even know where my ticket is, to be honest.
It's all right. Don't worry
All
about
right.
it.
No problem.
I'm trying to remember. My memory is horrible. I can't remember what else I did this weekend. I came back from Chicago on Friday. And what did we do? Man, I think I drank too much this weekend. That's usually why I can't remember.
That you can't. Did you have lots of vodka shots at Paladar?
No, I just had I had a couple glasses of wine there. Last night we went to Crumb and Spigot. Do you go there much, Crumb and Spigot?
I don't know.
It's such a great, amazing restaurant. I love it. Just love it. Not chamber members?
They're not. No.
I take back everything I just said. Come on, Crumb and Spigot. You guys can do better than that.
We've tried to invite them.
Ugh, unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday during the day, we had an all-day strategic planning session with my lawyers here, and that was good. And then
Was that
afterwards,
good?
it was great. It was really good.
Oh.
And then we went to the we went bowling with Maya and Tiffany at the bowling place downtown. Corner Alley.
Uh-huh.
And then we went to the chocolate fondue place afterwards, and then we just went home. So that was Saturday.
The chocolate fondue place.
You ever been
Tell
there?
me more.
Chocolate bar, I think it's called.
Is that a fondue place?
Is fondue just like when you dip your strawberries in a big
like
vat of
the
chocolate, melted chocolate?
Not potpourri, or the place at Legacy is.
Yes, it's like that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But I guess that's chocolate fondue. There's also like fondue with cheese. I think
Right,
cheese
and
is
oil.
Yeah.
Right. Does the chocolate have all of that, or does it just have
This
the
was
chocolate?
just chocolate.
Just chocolate. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There's another great restaurant down in Cleveland that just opened, and it's called The Republic.
Unfamiliar.
And it's the Driftwood. It's Chris Hodges, a new Chris Hodges place. And it's kind of like, if you're looking at Playhouse Square, it's like two doors to the left of it's right there. Right there.
I'm unfamiliar.
Yeah, it was
check
really
it out.
good. Check it out. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about
we have a guest.
My man Tim Opsitnick. Tim is a really good dude. I was excited to get him in here because he wears multiple hats. He is definitely an advisor to entrepreneurs.
What's his nationality? Opsitnick.
Ooh, let's play that game.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess
Opsitnick.
Polish.
Opsitnick.
What do you think?
I'm going to guess Croatian.
Ooh, that sounds like a solid guess. All right. So Tim and I both serve on the Cozy Board of Directors. He is an advisor to business owners at all stages of their business journey. He's been heavily involved in EO. Do you know about EO?
I don't.
It's an entrepreneurs organization. It's the largest entrepreneurs organization in the world, I believe. I'm probably going to be joining it sometime in the next year or so. And he's really heavily involved in that. And that's a lot of peer group advising. Tim will talk about it, but people swear by it. Business owners that I know who have joined EO talk in terms of how they would have to be in a hospital to miss an EO meeting. I guess they have EO meetings each month with their group, their small group, and people swear by it. They love going there. They're everything is confidential. They share everything about their businesses with each other, and they are like their own board of directors, basically, Okay. So he's heavily involved in that. He is one of the pioneers of e-discovery and electronic document management and storage. He founded a company in 2000 called Jurinov, which I remember learning about and hearing about when I was just starting to practice law around that time. And then he had an exit. He sold the company to TCDI, Technology Concepts and Design. And he now works for TCDI, running a division of TCDI. And I get wisdom from him every time I talk to him. And I'm eager to get wisdom from him right now.
I'm sure our listeners are as well.
I'm going to go get him.
Do it.
This is information. We're rolling, so you want to be about this far away.
All right.
We
All
were
right.
just socializing.
No, I know, but we want to tell people where your office is anyway. So say that again. Where's your office?
We are in Playhouse Square, and my offices overlook the chandelier.
Oh, it must be nice during the fireworks. And don't they do New Year's Eve right there? Or did they move it back?
No,
to
they've moved it, but there was a big party when they introduced the chandelier and the different hangings around there and the gateway and all that. And so we had a giant party at my office. We had about 80 people.
Wow.
And we had great seats overlooking the party.
Oh, cool.
A lot of fun.
We were introduced to Tim like maybe a couple years too late. We didn't get our invitation for that.
For the chandelier party?
Right.
I want to say it's probably been 2013, 12.
It's time for another one, too.
Yeah.
Another chandelier party.
That is that holds the world's record for the largest outdoor chandelier. Did you know
Right.
that?
It is gorgeous.
Lights.
Yeah, most lights. Was that how they're measuring that?
Yeah, it's actually the most number of crystals.
Oh,
Is how they're measuring it. They actually have lights behind the crystals.
okay.
Is it a Swarovski?
I'm not sure. No,
crystal.
I don't think so. I think GE had it custom built, developed.
It is a beauty.
Yeah.
It is a beauty. Not going to lie. So welcome, Tim, to the Best Podcast Ever.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So we have a crack research department here. Her name is Nellie. We know everything about you.
Yes.
Things that you thought were buried deep in the recesses of the internet, no longer, my friend. We know it all.
It's out.
Wow. Look at how he's blushing. And
Except
look at the fear
nationality.
that has just...
We have to...
Oh, yeah. We were playing
to
the
start
nationality
there.
game. Opsitnick. We both made a guess as to what it is. So what is it?
It's Slovak.
I was closer.
The original spelling was Obsitnik.
Okay.
And I know that because a distant cousin was the ambassador to Slovakia, and he has done the entire family tree of all existing Opsitniks in the world.
Wow.
And there aren't many, but we pretty much know everybody. And I know the roots. It's all traced back to three brothers who appeared in Slovakia around the late 1700s.
Wow. Very cool. I said Croatian.
I said Polish. We were both off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting that you say Polish because they haven't been able to trace the three brothers, where the three brothers originally came from. And there is a thought that they could have could have dropped down from either Poland or from Russia. But it's hard to say.
I'm going to say Polish on that one,
You're
Molly,
gonna win.
for purposes
Okay.
of my guess.
Okay.
Tim, as I look at the work product that our crack research department has generated, and once we get through all of the illegal stuff that we can't talk about until the end of the podcast, I'm just joking. It's all good stuff. But I would say that you generally have 3 hats that I want to dig into and divide this show into. One is as an entrepreneur yourself, someone who's founded a business, sold the business, I guess founded it, grew it, sold it, and now you're in this, you're still working for it, right? But now you're in the post-entrepreneurial life cycle, arguably, for that business. So I want to talk about that journey. The other hat that you wear is one that where you're advising, and that's the EO hat. And you and I have talked a lot about Cozy and about how there is definitely a need for young entrepreneurs to be able to tap into the knowledge base that guys like you have, right?
That's right. It's not easy being an entrepreneur.
Right. So that's the second hat. And the third hat, which I did not know about, is that you ran for the Ohio House. Right?
I did, yes.
Yeah, so
that great experience.
We've never talked about that, Tim, and had I known, I would have peppered you with inane questions incessantly about that. So we're going to talk about that too.
So now you will do it.
Now I will.
Here on the podcast.
On the podcast.
Great.
Of course, the fourth hat would be that of an attorney. You were a very successful attorney for the largest law firm in the world, right? Is Jones Day the largest? Or
I don't think they're the largest. They are not the largest. They certainly are very large, but not the largest.
Who do you think the largest is?
Well, it depends on the measure. They're actually one of the accounting firms, big accounting firms, management consulting firms, if you count worldwide lawyers, may be the largest law firm now in the world.
Yeah.
And I believe Baker McKenzie may be the largest traditional law firm of what we think of law firms.
Okay.
But I'm not really sure. It's been a long time since I've looked at that. Suffice it to say, I think there was 300 and some lawyers when I joined Jones Day, probably 1,300 when I left, and they are probably well over, I don't know, I'd guess 3,000 now. So.
Oh, I can't believe they were ever at 300. I'm sure I stands to reason they must have. For my entire life, they were in the thousands. Well, Molly always gives me the stink eye whenever I bring lawyers on and keep asking them lawyer quite like that.
Do I?
Well, you're always saying how we've got too many lawyers on the podcast.
Well, I'm blessed
Tim,
in that I am a
don't
lawyer.
Listen to him.
But I use that the tools of being a lawyer more in my
thrilled that
my
you're
business.
Here. Don't listen to him, Tim.
My point in that was that we are not going to get into that hat very much. At least
we could get into whatever hat Tim wants to put on and talk about.
All right. Why don't we talk about the entrepreneurial hat first? Because
I need to know. I mean, it's from all that Tim's been involved in. It sounds like he's 180,000 years old.
Are you saying we should ask Tim
I'm just saying
how old he is?
I mean, he's been with this company for 30 years, and I didn't even know about the law.
TCDI is 30 years old.
TCDI is 30 years old. They were founded in 1988. I founded my company in October of 2000.
Okay.
And then I was at Jones Day.
Were you an attorney at that time?
I was, yes.
Okay.
And I remain proudly an attorney.
Yeah, and you should
still
be,
are.
It's a proud profession.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I was merely...
And you should have plenty of attorneys as your guests.
Well, I mean, I could talk to lawyers all day, and I do talk to lawyers all day. I was simply trying to balance out the material here for Molly's sake, because we do tend to be lawyer-heavy on our...
I remember one of the biggest criticisms of the legal profession in the 90s was that we were drawing way too many smart, intelligent people to the legal profession instead of where they should have been in technology and developing, products and other services. And so,
and you said, "Well,
but that's evolved since then. It's certainly been tougher since to graduate from college and to find legal careers since the quote unquote Great Recession of 2008."
Tim, I have nothing against attorneys. I love them. Good. My sister's one. I want to talk law all day long.
No, you don't. You found, so you were a very successful litigator for Jones Day for like, what, 15, 20 years?
15 years.
15 years.
And I'm sure some would deny that, but successful part, but yes. I enjoyed it tremendously. Good. I enjoyed being a litigator. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And
I needed to find a different lifestyle.
Right. And you did.
Because I'd love to dive into that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Why does somebody become I would love to know why. I mean, if it's not too personal.
No, it's not personal. I mean,
life.
I craved for something else. I looked around me and I saw that, and I was surrounded by very, very bright people, the smartest of the smart. And but I could see that, 10 or 15 years from now, I was going to be doing the same thing. And I wanted an alternative. And I wanted control of my path or my destiny. And so I'd always wanted to start a business. And my wife and I talked about it, and she has had a very successful career as well. And so we I don't want to say we flipped a coin. We didn't really flip a coin, but we talked about it and said, hey, how about one of us take the big gamble and try to start their own business? And so that's why I ended up in that direction.
Well, I love that. I mean, that talks all about, passion and doing something that you want to be doing. I mean, when you're spent all that time in education to be a lawyer and then you go and make that jump, I mean, that's a huge life decision to make. Although you knew you probably could always go back to law if you needed to.
Absolutely. Always could go back.
I love that.
So it was e-discovery. Jurinov was an e-discovery sort of founder in that industry, right?
Yeah, we certainly were. But back then, back in 2000, when we originally founded the company, it was founded on we were collecting information and sorting it in databases. If you will, we were building litigation management systems for complex litigation. And we did it by, they were almost like knowledge management systems, corporate records and information and pleadings and medical records and, significant court decisions and depositions. We collected and organized all those things. Now, very quickly thereafter, we started doing computer forensics. The computer forensics, brought us into the e-discovery. E-discovery, although the first time I dealt with electronic records was probably 1988, was the first email system that I can remember dealing with. It was a database system called All-in-One, I think. And so we started doing the computer forensics and started doing the e-discovery, and then later on, the forensics led us into the cybersecurity.
So, Tim, you're a litigator doing complex litigation, and how does the light bulb go off that there is this need out there that someone is not serving well enough, and that you could slide into that gap? How does that light bulb go off for you?
Well, I don't think that lawyers are very good entrepreneurs as a general rule. And so, Alex, you have something to be, proud of. I mean, I think...
Oh, I thought you were going to include me in the not very good entrepreneurs.
No. So,
example A.
Well, I know from our many discussions and the things you do that you're, as entrepreneurial as most. And as a general rule, I don't think lawyers do that very well. And there's a lot, and we could go into and talk about a lot of those, why those reasons may be. So I had been doing a lot of work technology-wise, helping our corporate clients build these knowledge management systems. And, remember, I grew up with computers. I mean, personal computers came about in 82, and I was in my transition from college to law school then and graduated from law school in 85. So really grew up with computers. And so there weren't a lot of people who had computer science degrees back then. In fact, computer science programs were within the mathematics department of most universities. And so doing what I was doing for our corporate clients, I saw an opportunity to build a technology company focused on helping and assisting corporate clients in the legal world.
So when you say that, so you, the need that you saw was that the law firms and the lawyers were unable to take care of this on their own, right? Electronic discovery, document management. Were you initially looking to serve lawyers or looking to serve anyone?
So think about the date. It's 2000.
Yeah.
And we've just come out of the rapid rise of the NASDAQ 5000, the tech bubble.
Right.
And good technology people, it's almost like today. If you get this feeling today that if you're a good technology person, you can get a job anywhere, right? It's almost a little crazy right now. And it was that way back in the late 90s. And so these technology folks who were very good at it, they surely did not want to work for law firms, because in law firms,
right,
they were sort of second-class citizens in the sense that, where was the growth and where was the path to success and the opportunities for them. They were based around lawyers. They were built around lawyers, law firms. And so they weren't necessarily attractive to technology people. So I thought, well, we can put together a technology company with the best technology minds and be on par with the best lawyers, but offer advice with respect to technology issues in the law.
Okay, so your target client was a law firm.
Law firms and large corporate clients.
Okay, got it. And you start your business. It's a few tech savvy people, right?
Correct. Yes.
And walk us through some of the early challenges. And was it? I mean, I'm guessing it wasn't. There weren't a lot of technological challenges. You got into the business because you knew that well. But what about like on the employee side or on the customer side? Or
well, I think one of the biggest challenges was to get people to understand how lawyers worked and what things were important to lawyers. And I'll give you an example. We had staff that from time to time would provide a deadline to do something or a date that they were going to get something done by. And I used to tell people, when you tell a lawyer you're going to get this done by X date, their world revolves around dates, especially litigators. They need to get things done because court imposed dates. And so they are very meaningful to lawyers. So when you say you're going to get something done, it's not like the technology world where that means I'm going to give it my best effort. And, if I get there and it looks like I haven't gotten it done, we'll agree on another extension. But that's not the world of lawyers, because lawyers operate around deadlines.
Yep.
And so, working with technology people and getting them to understand, what was important to lawyers and why was a big part of that. And conversely, so I found myself and still to this day do find myself engaged in the integration of discussion between technology folks and lawyers, and I'm involved in all kinds of different groups in that end. So,
can you remember any? I call them. So, you and I talked about this coaching program that I'm in, Strategic Coach. You do EO. Right. Which we're going to talk about. Mine is called Coach. And we talk about this, how every business climbs and climbs and climbs and then hits a ceiling of complexity and doesn't break through that ceiling until it simplifies, right? And every entrepreneur goes through that same journey. And so everyone thinks that they have to keep adding resources and making their business more complex, when in reality it's counterintuitive. But what you actually want to do is constantly look for ways to simplify your business, work less, work more efficiently. We talk about that a lot in Coach. I wonder if you experienced any times where you just hit a wall and found that things just got too complex. What did you do to break through that wall?
Well, I think you never break through the wall. You kind of retract and go around it. But what I would say that happened in many instances is you needed to be careful and not do what I characterize as get involved in distractions. You had your core business and your things that you wanted to do. And lots of opportunities came up to do other similarly related things. And you had to keep yourself from headed down that path because you had your core business, how you were making your money, and you need to do that in a focused way. Now, having said that, we made a huge change in our business beginning around 2006. We laid the foundation for a change into cybersecurity, and what I noticed occurring was that a lot of what we were doing was on a path to become commoditized. And I really didn't want to be doing something that was commoditized. And I'll give you an example. We in the legal services business, electronic discovery world, we had this thing we called data processing, which is we would take, for example, large sets of email, and we would process it. We would create TIFF images. We would extract the content and the metadata out of it. When I first got involved in the business, almost unbelievably, it would cost $5,000 a gigabyte to undertake and to do that. And it also would take possibly, for 3 to 5 gigabyte a month to do it. Now, flash forward to today, and that price went from $5,000, and it's now, we're in the below $100 for that same requirement, between $100 and $200, depending on specifically what you're going to do with the data. But the differences are the technology evolved, and the technology is amazing now. What once took me a month, I'm doing in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So, there's trade-offs.
And so, to paraphrase what I think you're saying, if you're able to stay focused and stay on the one core thing that you do better than anyone else, it's harder to commoditize what you do, right? Is that what you were thinking?
Well, yeah, I think that's that is correct. If you're headed, let me say, if you're headed down the right path, you don't want to do a business, generally speaking, if you're service oriented, that becomes commoditized because then you're always chasing after less and less money. So you need to get into something which requires, difficult abstract thinking. Computer forensics is the example. We were doing computer forensics, analyzing computer systems and their artifacts and their content. We've been doing it for 20 years, as long as anybody. That continues to be a very difficult undertaking for our clients. Now, why is that? Well, computers get more and more complex every day. The amount of information increases. So I think it's important to take your company and your organization in a direction where it's going to be profitable. I mean, there are 3 things that matter most to entrepreneurs. Their clients, their employees, and cash flow. And with respect to the cash flow issue, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be chasing services that are declining in profitability on a regular and consistent basis.
But I think that's the trap. I think it's chasing that cash flow that makes entrepreneurs get distracted easily because they think that they can make a quick buck over here, even though it's outside their core focus, right?
Yeah, and I've always been very good at understanding what's a distraction and what's not, and where your expertise lies or your expertise of your staff. I've always felt that my number one role as an entrepreneur was not necessarily what people thought it was. My number one role was always to define what people do best and give them an opportunity to do that. So, for example, you've got a particular employee who is just very good at doing something. You need to get them into a position where they can do that. Now, that's not always possible, and sometimes we have to do things we don't like to do, and that's true of entrepreneurs. There are certain things I like to do, and I strive to do those things on a consistent basis. But there are also other things that I don't like to do, but I happen to be very good at them. But as I find the older I get, I have very little patience.
Yeah.
And so things that are tedious, I steer away from.
See, that's interesting because I have felt like the older I get, the more patient I get. I've been thinking. This is funny that you mentioned that because I've been reflecting a lot on how impatient I used to be, and how now I find myself being able to just sit back and just wait and not talk and not make a decision and live in that space.
But I think you've been working on that.
I have.
I think typically as you get older, I think it's more common what Tim's saying, that you kind of start losing your patience a little
Suffer
bit.
no fools.
Yeah. But you had mentioned that you knew, or that you're good at deciding what is not part of the path, or how do you, because you're working with a team, how do you get that team to get back on the track and say, you know what, that's not part of our mission, or that's not.
Well, you'll need to let them go down that road. By that, I mean you need to ask lots of questions, and you need to allow them to influence you. And I've always felt that that's the best way out of most discord, or most situations where you almost have to mediate, or you're working with others. Because not one person has all the answers. Mm-hmm. And so you have to have an open mind, and you have to be willing to listen and ask a lot of questions, but then come to a common agreement that, maybe that's not, the time isn't right for us to do that. And why might that be? Mm-hmm. And so you hope to get people to that. But as I said, I've been wrong in the past, and I'll continue to be wrong. If you're not wrong, then you're probably not challenging yourself enough. Those who challenge themselves are wrong consistently, and that's how we build our experience level.
Hey folks, Alex Gertzberg here. I am CEO of the Gertzberg Law Firm and Cover My Six, and I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I wanted to take a quick second to tell you about something special we're doing at Cover My Six. If you own or run a business, I want you to go to covermysix.com to see if you qualify for a no-cost business vulnerability assessment. My business lawyers will meet with you in person, go over your customer contract, your employee handbook, and your other key legal documents, and help you spot any legal minefields that they see. We'll also give you some guidance on how to stop those minefields from blowing up your business. So go to covermysix.com to see if you qualify and to sign up. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show. Can you think of a time when you were wrong, where you are so grateful that you were wrong because it catapulted you into being right in a way that you wouldn't have been had you not been wrong?
Well, I think originally going into cybersecurity, it was very different than what we were doing. Now, cybersecurity was a big part of our business. We had to be secure because we were collecting a lot of confidential information. So security was a big part of our business. And so originally I thought it to be somewhat of a distraction. But as we sat down and began to look at it, we realized that with the commoditization that was happening around a lot of the e-discovery things, we needed to pivot and go in another direction where things were more profitable, if you will. The margins were greater. And so initially I was reluctant to do that, and I was influenced by others to head in that direction. And that's been phenomenal. So for example, our cybersecurity practice grew 94% last year, and we are on a path to grow 70% this year. You only have to pick up the newspaper to see what's going on out there to realize there are lots of opportunities out there. Now, we're limited by resources, but there are a lot of opportunities to grow.
Let's spend 5 minutes just talking about cybersecurity. So first of all, there's things that you and your firm help businesses with in terms of cybersecurity. But then there are things that that we should be aware of, that business people listening to this podcast who might not pick up the phone to call you should be aware of. Talk about each of those buckets. What should the businesses sitting around listening to this think about in terms of cybersecurity and threats that are out there now and what they can do about those threats?
Well, you're only as good as your weakest link. And every organization at various points are going to have a weak link. I can reflect on a personal experience. I get off the airplane one night. I'd been flying for 3 hours. It's late at night. I'm exhausted. I'm looking at my email. I have hundreds of email messages I'm going through, and I nearly click on a malware executable that someone sent me on an email because I was very tired and I was exhausted. And so there was a time I was particularly vulnerable to that. And that is true in almost every organization today. So what I think that everybody needs to understand is that everybody will be a victim of some cybersecurity event at some point or another. It will happen. So you have to prepare for it. It's just the nature of our changing world today.
So the low-hanging fruit right now still is an employee opening up an attachment from a weird source.
Does it have to be an attachment, or does it have to be a link? Can you just open an email and get attacked or get...
No, not typically just open an email. But you can. There's something known as sort of a drive-by, malware that you can get by surfing on websites where you don't belong and shouldn't. By going through websites.
Alex, stop that porn.
I don't do that at work.
Okay.
Yeah. Thankfully. Look, here's what I tell our clients. There are 3 buckets of people you need to worry about from a cybersecurity perspective. And if you pick up the newspaper and you read about, all you hear about are the North Koreans and the Iranians and the Russians. And what I would tell you is you have no control over the North Koreans or the Russians or or the Iranians. If they choose to come after you and get you, they're going to get you. I mean, they have unlimited state resources. Right. And the second bucket are your own employees and their accidental or malicious actions.
Right.
And what I would say to you is that you actually have control over your employees. You can provide them with awareness and you can provide them with training. So from a low-hanging fruit standpoint, empowering your employees with cybersecurity training and onboarding and periodic training is by far your best bang for your buck. And then the third bucket are third parties with whom you've engaged in contractual arrangements to provide data. And this can be, cloud providers or somebody that you transfer data to from some standpoint or another. And you have control over these third parties. You can evaluate and investigate and make sure that they're doing what they need to do with the data. So although the news is talking all about the Russian influence on presidential elections or on cybersecurity issues or the Chinese or whoever the case may be, the North Koreans, the reality is you can make the biggest difference by empowering your own staff. And that's the one thing that I would want people to remember. You can make big changes by helping them get better.
And by the way, just as a business lawyer, I can tell you that if it's a vendor, a technology vendor, or really any vendor that a business is entering into a contract with, you can require them to indemnify you and protect you if they misuse your data, if they commit a HIPAA violation with your medical data, if they get hacked and you are exposed because of it. So there's indemnification that you can seek, and you can also require them to name you as an additional insured on their insurance policy so that you may not have cybersecurity insurance, but they should. And there's other things that you can do from a business law standpoint, a commercial law standpoint. But Tim, you and I had lunch a few weeks ago and we talked about security audits. And that's something that TCDI does, that you do. talk about what that involves, and when should I, as a business owner, pick up the phone and call Tim Opsitnick and say, let's talk about a security audit?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. You mentioned TCDI, and so just to get that out there, I sold my business into a much larger company called Technology Concepts and Design, Inc. It's been 3 years now, and it's been an enjoyable experience, and they've provided greater opportunity to us. But what we perform we call cybersecurity assessments or security audits. You can call them whatever you want. But what we basically do is we evaluate security controls against known certifications or frameworks. How are you doing? And they're a point-in-time snapshot. And we make suggestions about how you can do things differently or better to improve your cybersecurity hygiene. And we typically, score these. We have metrics so that we can show improvement over time. But, in essence, we are evaluating a company's cybersecurity controls.
You determine where they're vulnerable. We talked about red teaming and vulnerability assessments. You figure out where they have these gaping holes in their security, and then you tell them how to fix it. Or do you fix them yourselves?
Well, so some of the things we might fix, but most of the time, we're a third party, and we do these third party attestations, and we tell our clients, we're happy to go away after we as a third party come in and tell you what you need to do to be a better corporate citizen with respect to preserving the confidentiality of private information or personal identifiable information. Because, cybersecurity really doesn't matter much. With what matters, it does matter, but what makes it matter is that you have certain privacy obligations, or you have, your own intellectual property obligations, that reasons why this stuff is valuable and you want to protect it. So you have to protect it either because of privacy requirements, or you have to protect it because of it has value. And so, these are the things that it revolves around. And so we try to get companies to understand what kind of data do you have, where is it, and what are the best practices of protecting it. But we often go away after we do these evaluations, and companies will engage others to help them improve, either by doing the additional technology required or compliance. So, for example, one of the things that we often come up with are the lack of policies or plans that are typically drafted by law firms or other consultants, like security policies, incident response plans, things of that nature. And so we will make those recommendations, and we will refer them to others who will do those things. So we'll do as much or as little. Now, there's some things that we do a lot of, like we do ethical hacking, and we may make a recommendation to a company that you should do what we call penetration testing, and what that is, in essence, is you pretend that you're going to hack into an organization, and you figure out either from the external how do you get in and where the vulnerabilities are, or you get in and you figure out, okay, I'm in. Now, where can I go that I shouldn't be able to go?
Yeah.
And we do that from a wireless penetration testing. We also do remote social engineering, where we try to get employees to allow us to do things that they shouldn't do.
So, go ahead.
Oh, no, on the data that a business would have, is there, so I'm thinking at the chamber, we have, in my mind, we don't have any information that's really crucial that you couldn't get from the phone book. Is there a point where you dip into, yes, you have crucial data, or you have data that you really need to make sure that you're protecting? Like, we don't have social security numbers. I would assume that's another level that you would want to protect. But is there just like if you have your phone number, your address, are you less likely to need the protection?
Well, certainly, I think that people are much more forgivable when you accidentally expose their their name and your address and your phone number, because as you say, they may be commonly available on the in a phone book, although that's changing.
Yes, it is.
But, as we get into other types of data, as you said, Social Security numbers, credit card numbers, but medical records, financial information, things of that nature, it gets much more complex. And what I would say is that the element of what I characterize as proportionality enters into the mix here. That is, you need to look at the type of data you have. And the type of data you have will often be indicative of the amount of effort that you're required to do to protect that data. And, so certain data may be required to be protected either because maybe you're a defense contractor and you're building the next best cruise missile, or you're a hospital and you have HIPAA requirements and you need to maintain the confidentiality of the healthcare information, the health records, or you're an accounting firm or a law firm. Law firms are perfect examples. They have a lot of confidential information of their clients. In fact, the ethical rules basically say that, all information that you get from your clients is deemed to be confidential if you're a law firm. So you have to look at, one of the first things that we recommend clients often do is they need to do like an audit, a data audit. They need to look at what data do they have and what laws apply to me.
Right.
And, lots of people can do that. Lawyers can do that. Accounting firms have done that. Consultants have done that. But when you find out what data you have, then you've got those proportionality requirements. How much effort is really required to protect that data. And then, of course, there's trade-offs. And the trade-offs are a big part of this. What's your comfort level with the risks? I mean, there are lots of companies that, may be more risk tolerant than others. So they may do more than the next company. Does that make them right or does that make them wrong? Not really. I mean, there's a huge gray area here. But you take all those things into consideration when you're building your strategic
Are
effort.
there laws in place from the government that require certain securities that have to be in place if you have certain data?
Absolutely, there are. Both federal, state, regulatory. It's unfortunately it's a minefield today, and it's ever changing and getting more and more complex. More and more states are getting involved and passing laws. So we have a patchwork quilt. We have various silos of data and information, financial records, medical records. And so it makes it very difficult for the typical company to really appreciate what their obligations are.
Well, and there's this new European law, GDPR.
Right.
Which supposedly, so it's so draconian, right? The penalties for a data breach that should have been prevented, the penalties for misusing customer data are so high. It's something like, it's some giant multiple of your revenue.
4% of your net profits.
4% of your net profits, but
it's 4% of your net profits, or 4% of your revenue. I'm not sure which it is.
I think they use the word turnover, which I think it means revenue. I think it's like 4% of your revenue.
So Facebook was a big one that did they get fined and everything for when they didn't they get a lot of data released?
I don't know what the end result of any of those investigations. I know it's happening all the time, and I know that the European paradigm is quickly spreading, and they say that the U.S. is slowly going to move into the same equal playing field.
I sure hope not.
It's pretty
what makes our
draconian.
country great is our quest that we have for innovation, and by strangling our corporations and our entrepreneurs and telling them they can't do X, Y, or Z, we are stifling innovation. We are very different. Our approach has been very different from the European approach, the European Union. In the United States, you are allowed to do anything you damn well please with data unless there's a law that tells you you can't. Now, under GDPR, you can't do anything with data unless there's a law that tells you you can. So we couldn't be farther apart. But what makes our country great is innovation, and they are stifling innovation. They are headed in the wrong direction.
This is a great segue into the Republican race that you ran. But before we get there, I've got one more question. So, Molly, how many members of the chamber? 540?
580 something.
580 businesses that Molly represents. About 1,000 here at the firm. So there's a lot of businesses between Molly and I that listen to us, right? Rightly or wrongly. And so the question I have for you, Tim, is what are you seeing out there, without mentioning any names, obviously, without violating any confidentiality obligations that you have, what are you seeing in the data security, data breach world that our members and our clients ought to sort of, sit up straight and really pay attention to?
Yeah, so we do incident response. So we are called in when companies have a specific incident, and we see 3 to 5 new engagements a week. And so I really do feel like I'm in a very good position to tell you what we see out there. But I don't think there's any secret at this. The two number one things that are a danger to individuals in corporate America are what I refer to as ransomware, which is some sort of malware that you get that encrypts your data and then says, pay me a ransom and I'll give you a security code that unencrypts your data and you get it back. Or, to make a long story short, something we call the business email compromise, which is spoofing or perhaps even taking over your email system or your email and pretending to be you or another and engaging someone in a fraudulent trickery and typically it's
buy this Amazon card.
Yeah, it's typically to wire. Our wire address has changed and our account has changed. Don't wire that money there. Wire it here from now on. Now, it's only been 2 weeks, and both of these have been in the news, and I'll talk about the 2 public cases in Cleveland that have been recently identified. And the first is that the Cleveland airport was down, and that they could not display their flights on their board, and they apparently disclosed that they had ransomware that had encrypted all their information on all their databases, and so they didn't have that ability to do that. And I think the city of Cleveland disclosed that it took them $750,000 to undo that mess. The second is on the business email compromises. There was a church here recently who, without their knowing it, were sent an email to say our wire transfer numbers have changed, and they wired money that was supposed to go to one contractor to a contractor was over $1 million, and instead they wired it to a false account. And so both of these are in the press recently, and they're good examples of what we see. Now, the one concern I have is on the ransomware. When we first saw ransomware, probably 3-4 years ago, it was small dollar amounts. And more recently, the dollar amounts for corporations have been $10,000 or $20,000. But they're evolving, and they're now in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to get your data back. So these are real risks. And the business email compromise, for gosh sakes, if you get an email that says, our wire transfer has changed or send money here, please pick up the phone and confirm it. And have a policy in place that you need to have dual authentication of any changes involving your financial systems, your bank accounts. Activate the dual authentication, so that you get notices if somebody accesses accounts. You get a notice to your cell phone and to confirm that it's happened. I mean, these are things that we all need to be doing. It's a very difficult time out there right now, and it doesn't cost a whole lot to get into the business of defrauding good people who necessarily want to help, and they think they're doing the right things,
and for
they fall
God's sake,
victim.
people, no one won $1 million and their uncle died, and you just
Nigerian
have to
prince.
send them some information about your bank account. Come on.
That's the the scary thing is that still works.
Oh my gosh!
Like there are just grandmas
I get it all the time
over there cleaning out their life savings.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing of it is, so on the first one that you mentioned, the ransomware is that's a clicking or opening up a file problem, right? Clicking on a link that you shouldn't click on, or opening up a file with malware on it.
Well, it can be, but more recently they've gotten more sophisticated, and they can get into your computers through some open access controls, and once into your computers they can place malware or droppers in there. But we typically most companies are typically struck by a phishing phishing example where somebody gets an email and they click on an executable, or they click on go to this link. What they don't realize is literally in a fraction of a second, some small dropper of some executable file is loaded to your computer that then builds itself and then calls home and then requests a package of a larger amount of information, and then so
scary.
And by the way, on that second one, the business email or the our wire instructions have changed, send them here. Huge law firms have been hit with that one, right? Like this is not just some pirate
Grandma.
in Asia or whatever, like taking advantage of some small business with an elderly person there that doesn't know any better. Highly sophisticated law firms have been hit with this scam where they will the pirate, quote unquote, will start a new matter, send a check over here that gets deposited into we call it an IOLTA account, an attorney escrow account, and before it clears, we'll ask for the money back, and we will send it over to them, and then find out that the money never came in the first place, and our money's already gone. Stuff like that. I mean, sophisticated law firms and professional services firms are doing stupid things.
As I said, most people are good and want to help and do the right things, and they get these requests and they think they're helping. But we need to be much more cautious today. It's a very difficult time, and we will solve these problems. I guarantee that we will. Technology got us into these problems. Technology will get us out of these problems. But I will say there are lots of other things that need to be done. We need to be a lot tougher with the criminals. We need to be a lot tougher with state actors who get involved in this. I mean, there's a whole discussion over where you draw the line and at what point things like this are acts of war. Yeah. And I won't get in. There are lawyers and others entered into that debate, and but we need to do a lot more to combat this, because it's not victimless crimes. It's not just money. We've had cases where hospital systems are shut down. They can't get the medical records. They can't get the cardiac care units where the people can get tested. We've had nursing homes where they don't know what medicines to dispense to their patients and when to dispense them. That has real world consequences to people's lives.
Yeah.
And are they finding out that it is just it is through another country, or is it just Joe Schmo who's in his basement really good at computers?
Well, it's both.
Okay.
It's both, but that this is the way that a lot of these state actors are funding their terrorist organizations. So it is, a lot of the more organized efforts are state actors.
Tim, when are you running again?
I don't know that I ever will. It's certainly possible. I won't exclude that. The timing was right when I ran the last time. In fact, it was one of the reasons why I sold my business. I was running for office, and I was approached the fourth time by TCDI, and wonderful people, and I thought it was a good way that I'd be able to work with them and still be able to work a day or two a week in the legal consulting world. And so I really enjoyed running. I learned a lot of fantastic things. It's a lot harder than people think.
I could never do it.
And
yeah.
But I'll tell you what the hard, and you asked me when I'm running again, and I'll tell you what I had the biggest problem with, and why I'm not sure I'll ever run again. And this is how this transpired. I was encouraged to run and asked to run, and it was the Republican primary in my district, and it was an open seat.
Yeah.
And I asked how much money is it going to take to run a good race and potentially get elected, and I think they told me $45,000. And I went home and told my wife, I've always wanted to get in politics. This is something I really wanted to do, and could we talk about this? And she was incredibly supportive and said, absolutely, you've always wanted to do it. And I said, well, they tell me it's going to take $45,000. So how about I just write the check? Because I hate to ask people for money. And she said, absolutely not. So what I found is I have a very, very difficult time asking people for money.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. I'll ask people for money for a good cause,
other people's
and your causes,
yeah.
For a charity, but for asked to run for office, it's very difficult for me. And you know what? You got to have money to run.
Was it 45?
I didn't spend 45.
Okay.
Well, then, and I lost, so maybe I should have. I think I ended up spending closer to 30. But I spent the most of anybody in my race. But name recognition is a huge part of it, and I lost. And
just by a little bit.
Yeah, just by a little bit. Yeah.
Less
so
than,
to a Kennedy?
No, not to Kennedy. But I lost, and the person had a lot of name recognition. He was a party executive, and was well known in the party, and was a primary. But I have absolutely no regrets. It was a wonderful experience, and for the first time in my life, I would start the day and end the day, and my list would be bigger of things to do, and it was a great learning experience.
Well, I think you should run again because you know business more in orders of magnitude than most politicians, and it being the case that business drives the economy and entrepreneurs drive the economy, having amateurs making policy affecting business and governing based on sound bites and based on marketing and what sells, that's not good for the country. But good knowledge and good information and good data, that's what's good for the country. And you must have had it because you've been very successful in your business.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, two quick stories there. The local newspaper, I received the recommendation of the local newspaper who said I was running on a platform of helping small business grow, which was so essential for the economy. And that's something they really supported because it was something. So to your point, I agree with you on that end. But I will share one personal story on this. And so I went to, I had my election that day, and my oldest son comes home, and I think it may be the day after the election, and he said to me, "Dad, it was awesome. It was so awesome. I got to vote for you and the President of the United States on the same ballot." And the one thing he said to me is, you wanted to start your own business. I watched you start your own business. You wanted to run for politics. You wanted, you went out and ran for politics. What a great example that is for me and for my sister and my brother, and it's that's something like that makes it all worthwhile.
Wow.
Sure does.
Sure does. Absolutely.
On that note, ordinarily we would have a lightning round here of questions and make you really uncomfortable and squirm in your seats, but unfortunately we have to pass, which means that you've got to come back and answer lightning round questions because I've got to skedaddle. And my people are here for this meeting I got to do. Molly, Tim, anything you want to get out there to the universe?
Tim's got something he wants to get out there, an upcoming
Data
conference.
Privacy and Cybersecurity Conference,
Yes.
Tim.
Oh, that's
What's going on with
I am on the advisory committee of Cleveland Marshall College of Law's Data Data Privacy and Cybersecurity Conference, and it is scheduled for May 30th and 31st. So if that is something that you're interested in, you should attend.
Where can they go find information?
It's on the website. If you go to Cleveland Marshall College of Law, you'll find links to it. And it's geared towards C-level executives, technical people working in this area, as well as attorneys. But a great upcoming program.
Awesome. And they can find you at tcdi.com.
Yes. tcdi.com.
Or on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn at T. Opsitnick.
Awesome. And Molly, by the time this airs, our concerts in the park are going to start, so people need to start moving.
Yes.
Right? They want to go to cvcc.org.
Yes.
Tim, your Thursday nights, I hope they're not full, because you got to come to Sugar and Falls and listen to some of these concerts.
Always, especially in the summer. I like to have a light Friday, so
perfect.
Motivate me to come. And
love it.
Done deal. Folks, thanks for listening in. We will see you next time.